Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 259. I am so glad you are here today because the topic that I'm going to be talking about is based off of some recent conversations that I've had both in person and online in my social media DMs and in my email and in my membership community, the Learners Lab, because we're all kind of feeling the same thing. Those of us who have been homeschooling for a while now, and maybe we have some younger kids still at home, but we also have older kids who are either much older and are gone from our homeschool, have graduated our homeschool, and or we've also got teens who kind of like live their own life right now, right? So it brings up these challenges when we're trying to keep our homeschool fun and exciting and interesting for our younger kids, but we're pulled in so many directions with our older kids. And I had an experience this week that I'm going to tell you about, and then I had a conversation in my DMs, and then another conversation in person, and so I know I'm not alone, and I thought that it was worth talking about. So we're going to get on with it. We're going to talk about when homeschool changes a little bit based on how old your kids are, what your circumstances are in a current year, and why every experience is a little bit different when it comes to how our kids are perceiving their own homeschooling or experiencing their own homeschooling. Okay, but before we get started, I just want to give a special shout out and thanks, as always, to our season-long sponsor, CTC Math. We just started our homeschool year in force this week, which is another thing I'm going to talk about in this episode. And it is such a relief to be able to just pick back up with CTC Math, where we took a break from, and the kids know exactly what to do. They can jump in, they haven't lost any steam, and they can work at their own pace. So I'm still a huge fan of CTC Math. So grateful they're sponsoring. And as you know, I am a customer to not just working with them through the podcast. I pay for my own subscription because I really love the product. So check them out at ctcmath.com, and you'll hear more about them later on in this episode. And let's get on with it. Pop those earbuds in, take a walk, decompress, or just catch up on some dishes or laundry. Whatever you need to do to get this podcast in, you're going to love it, and I can't wait to hear what you think. So let's get on with it. Okay, so like I said in the introduction, we're going to talk today about what it's like when homeschooling changes throughout the years and how that can, frankly, make us as moms feel like we're missing something or doing something. So I think that let me just put this into perspective. I think that for so many homeschool families out there, especially new homeschooling families, they look at homeschooling families who have been doing it for a long time and think, okay, they've got it. They totally know what they're doing now. And here I am like flailing around, and they think that everybody eventually discovers this like magic formula that's going to make homeschooling work. But the thing about homeschooling is it's like parenting, right? And parenting is hard. Parenting is really hard, and parenting changes depending on the circumstance and your family situation and different crises that come up and all of that different stuff. And homeschooling is parenting on steroids. It's all of that and more. And so, of course, our homeschool is going to change, and it's going to ebb, and it's going to flow. And it's not going to look like it did when our kids were little or whatever. Here's the thing that's even more interesting about that. Our homeschool is not going to be the same from kid to kid to kid. Now, let's think about this just from a parenting perspective, first and foremost, because I remember at one point in my parenting, I was really struggling. I don't remember how old the kids were. I think my oldest was probably around 12, which would have made my next youngest, what would that be? 7, and then 5, and then 1, something like that. So it was a hard time in my homeschooling. And I felt like I wasn't giving, particularly my secondborn and my thirdborn, as much as they needed, because so much of me was pouring into my firstborn, who had all sorts of things going on at 12, and my 1-year-old, because we know as parents, 1-year-olds require a lot of work. And I remember talking to somebody. I was seeing a therapist at the time and working through some of this parenting struggle and getting support so I could continue to be a support for people as well as my kids. And this person said to me, you have to remember, things will always change as you go. So what your firstborn experiences as a kiddo in your household will be different than what your fourthborn experiences. Your firstborn has a time when they were just the only one. Your secondborn never knows what it's like to be an only child, right? Your thirdborn never knows what it's like to be an only child. And then in my case, my fourthborn, who's my last one, will have a little sense of what it's like to be an only child when he's in high school, because the other three will be moved out or at college. And so he'll have that feeling when he's at home. His experience of childhood, and the teen years in particular, will be very different from the teen years of my other children. And my oldest, there's 5 years between him and the next one. And so that's a big age gap. So when he was a high school senior, she was just entering middle school. That's a big gap. And so their experiences related to just family dynamics are very different from one another just because of their birth order. And there's been research on this forever, right? There's birth order books. There's psychologists who study birth order. There are all sorts of theories about the firstborn being this, that, and the other, and the baby of the family being this, and the middle child being whatever. There's all sorts of theories, and you can go look them up, and it's fascinating to read about. But you know what? Our homeschool is the same. Our homeschool changes based on the ages we have at home. And moms, dads, if you're listening, but I know this is a predominantly mom-based audience, but any dads out there listen too, it's okay. It is okay that your homeschool looks different for the current kids you have in your homeschool than it did when you had your older children there doing whatever. When all of my children were young, we did a lot of hands-on stuff. We did a lot of project-based learning. We did a lot of field trip-based learning. We went to museum classes. We went to glass blowing lessons. We went out to the park in the middle of the day. We did all sorts of things to keep the movement going on because you have those kids. I remember for years and years, probably like a good 8 or 9 years, we had a membership to the Great Lakes Science Center in downtown Cleveland. And the reason I had that particular membership was because the Science Center is one of those places that can engage a 10-year age span. And at the time, let's just say Trevor was 15. If Trevor was 15, Molly was 10, Logan was 8, Isaac was 5. That's a big difference. A 5-year-old and a 15-year-old. And Trevor was an immature 15-year-old at the time. And so he wanted to like goof off and hang out and talk to the volunteers at the museum and whatever. I needed to get out of the house at a place where he could be engaged, and he could. Those volunteers loved talking to him. And my 5-year-old could be engaged too. And the Science Center hit those marks because it was very quiet during the day, during the school day when most kids are in school. And so we could have the play place to ourselves, and the little ones could play, and the big ones could go around the top floor and check back in. And then there was the IMAX movie, and then we were right by Lake Erie. So a lot to be able to do with various age groups, or various age groups. And we did a lot outside the house. Okay, fast forward, Trevor's 21. Yeah, he's still living here. He still works from home. He's saving up his money. Eventually he'll buy a house or something. But right now, there's no reason to move out. And frankly, I love having him here. Thanks, Trev, again, because he is my third driver. And so I can have him cart people around when I need to. That's his rent. He gets to be my chauffeur or my kid's Uber. But He's not in our homeschool right now, but my homeschool consists of a very busy 17-year-old high school senior, an equally busy 15-year-old high school freshman, and an 11-year-old. And that 11-year-old is not getting the same experience in his homeschool that my other kids got when they were 11. Because when they were 11, there were enough younger kids that we could go and go. But my 17-year-old schedule is very busy. She's taking two college classes. She's got to get to campus. So there's driving in there. She's not driving herself yet, so we have to work on the carpooling and the figuring things out. She has rehearsals 4 to 5 days a week. She's in a show right now, so she's got shows on the weekends. She has private dance, private voice. She's got some acting coaching going on. She's working on college applications and essays, her regular homeschooling, her social life. She is a volunteer preschool acting teacher and does all sorts of other stuff. That's just like the stuff that I have to get her to. And then my 15-year-old is part of a youth fellowship program through some of the local universities in the metro parks. She does volunteer work with them and excursions. She's a Girl Scout. She's doing the volunteer work and the things that go along with that. She also volunteers as a preschool teacher. She takes some fine arts classes, different fiber arts and things like that, and then has a full load of work that she's doing at home because she wants to work in animal sciences or some combination of animal behavior and possibly zoology or something like that. So we need to hit some sciences heavy and things like that. The point is, those two children are very busy with things that they have to be brought to, which is an interruption of the day. Meaning, we can't just go to the park. We can't just go on a field trip. We can't just go and do. We have to work around those schedules to make sure that everybody's needs are being met. The 11-year-old doesn't get the opportunities to go and do and experience and explore and take a day off to go to the park or whatever. And that's okay. I was feeling, frankly and honestly, a little bit of guilt over that last week. We are starting so I am recording this. I'm a little bit behind in my recording because, like life, what I just described to you, figuring out the logistics and the triangulation of that schedule on top of the live events and classes and meetups and clubs in the Learners Lab for the season, and having a social life and a family life with my kids and my friends is very difficult. Getting it all in has been difficult. So I'm recording this on Monday. It's going up live on Wednesday, so you're listening to this on September 18th or afterwards if you're listening to the replay or the archives. But I'm recording this 2 days in advance. Okay, I usually record my episodes 2 weeks to 2 months in advance. So I'm really behind in my scheduling, and I'm behind in everything else, including getting my school year started. Way back when, we used to start our school year the day my husband went back to school. We would declare a not back to school day. I would set out all the kids' new curriculum and workbooks if we had them, or school supplies if we needed them, along with some fun stuff, hands-on type things that they could both play with together. So usually like some games or some toys that like were bonding experiences. You've heard me talk about family connection before and how important I feel that it is. And so this was an opportunity to be able to do that and give them some things that they could play with together. And then just some fun little things for themselves. So they'd wake up, they'd come down, happy not back to school day, get their stuff. I'd get a group picture together, and then we would blow off the day. We would go out for donuts, eat donuts at the donut shop, and then go to a park, go to a museum, go do something. Occasionally we'd have friends over. One year it was super hot, and we had friends over to swim in our pool. Just something fun. The idea being, everybody around us, including poor dad, is going back to school, and we get to celebrate not back to school because we are not going to a classroom. We are doing life and school together. Super fun tradition. We look forward to it every year. My kids actually ask me when not back to school day is once we're getting towards August and September. And so it used to be like mid to late August when my husband would go back to school. And then it got a little bit later because life got really busy and figuring out the schedule started taking on like epic proportions of my time. And so I didn't want to start a routine that would just be broken up and broken up. So I'd wait until everything was situated. So it's gotten started later and later, with really the week of Labor Day being the latest I've ever had to go, because by Labor Day, we pretty much know our schedule until this year. This year, with Logan also being in so many different activities, she has something on Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and at least 3 Saturdays a month. And so she's got something all the time. Tuesdays and Thursdays are her only open days, and usually somebody else has something on those days. I didn't have all of the information and dates I needed for her in order to be able to start on the week of Labor Day. And because I was so stressed about figuring out where everybody was going to need to be when and how I was going to manage all the driving, I kept putting off ordering their fun stuff, figuring out what curriculum we were going to use, what research projects we were going to do, what group things we were going to do. And it was getting later and later. And the kids wanted to start. They were asking me when not back to school day was, when it was going to get started, what we were going to do. And so here we are, 2 weeks after Labor Day. And I just started today. Today was our not back to school day. But here is the other thing. Last week, I had a slight breakdown. Okay, all the confessions are coming out here today because this conversation is not just me. And I bet some of you are feeling this way too. I had a slight breakdown. I was so overwhelmed and so devastated that I was sitting in my kitchen one evening. My husband was already in bed. He's an early to bed, early to rise guy, and the rest of us are all night owls. And my 17-year-old came into the kitchen and she's, "What's wrong?" And I was just sitting there like staring off into space. I was so just crushed with the weight of, are you ready for it? The pressures we put on ourselves as moms. Under the weight of, I can't find a day that we could do a not back to school day. And this was just hurting my heart. We've already given up just about everything else. I can't just take a day off. I can't just say, hey, it's a surprise ride day. We're going to go on an overnight to Kalahari and do the indoor water park overnight. Because somebody always has something. And so it's either find a ride for that other person so I could go take the others somewhere, or we just do half-day things. And I've already got a bunch of, this is not a whining, we're not going to get anything fun in, because I have a lot of half-day things that are planned. But I was like, I can't even find one full day that we could just have a not back to school day where we don't do anything. And I was like, I can't do not back to school. And Molly's, you don't have to. And I said, I do have to. I can't get rid of everything fun and everything that kind of sets us apart, not just because it's tradition or I'm holding on to it, but because there is some magic about being able to embrace that counterculturalism that we have the ability to take advantage of. And I firmly believe in building those shared stories with my kids and themselves and each other so that they have these things to talk about when I'm gone. Because, right, in an ideal world, they're going to outlive me. They're going to outlive my husband. They're going to have each other when we're gone, and each other's families and each other's children, their nieces and nephews. And I want them to be able to say, do you remember when we did that every year? How fun was that? Whether they choose to homeschool or not, they're going to have those memories where they spent those times. Dad had to go off to work and so did all the neighborhood kids. I said, I can't give everything up. I already can't just blow off the week and go to Cedar Point in the middle of the week or take an overnight right now. We just can't do it in this fall season. But I don't want to give up the not back to school day. I don't want to give up not giving you guys some fun stuff to look forward to and open up. And I don't want to give up the pictures and the donuts and the whatever. And she's like, why don't you just spread it out? Do something different, but the same. And I was like, okay, so that's brilliant, right? The simplicity. It's still the same at its core, but it's a new year with a new evolution. Isaac's not back to school experience will not look like the early years when he was 1 and the other kids were young too, but it can still be magical. So what we did today, Molly had class at the college. Logan is actually right now, as I'm recording this, at her crochet class, the fiber arts class that she's taking this semester. And Isaac is up playing, and my son is taking him, and Molly is off to a rehearsal. My husband's picking her up from there. We're all scattered. But this morning, they all came down. They saw their goodies. We had some workbooks. They've got some handwriting workbooks. A couple of them have vocabulary. Molly already got hers because she had to start her science classes, but I got her some really good tools that she'll need for college musical theater audition, like weekends that we have to go on. She's got a fun bag and a speaker and some phone chargers and some new jazz shoes and things like that. Logan, who is just in love with animals and has a new tank of fish, and she got some fish and we needed a tank. So she got a smart tank with an app to control it and some things to experiment with, along with some entomology stuff. Isaac got just some fun snap circuit add-ons, expansion packs. One is to make a paper airplane launcher with snap circuits. He's super excited about that. And then the kids together, we're going to be doing some geography. So I got a new globe because we didn't have a globe. And then they got a balance board, something that will help. I often have to give them therapy tools. This will help Isaac with some vision therapy, and it'll help Molly with some core exercises for dance. And then I also got the kids mini Hot Wheels remote control car racers so they could race each other and have some fun doing that, along with a mini karaoke machine so we could build those connections in the memory. So they got all that stuff today. We didn't have time for donuts. We didn't have time to go outside on an excursion. We didn't have time to go to the park. We just didn't, with Molly's college class and Logan's crochet class and rehearsal and all the other things that had to happen today. But tomorrow, Isaac's going to vision therapy in the morning with his big brother, and I'm going to the haircut place with the girls, and then Isaac's meeting us there to get his haircut, and then we're going to all go for donuts afterwards. And so we're going to do donuts tomorrow after haircut appointments, and then we'll get on with our evening activities because there's a slew of them. And then Wednesday is a crazy busy day, so we can't take any time off on Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be out of town for a work thing. And the kids will be doing all of the things that they normally do. And next week, there is one day that we don't have anything until 4 o'clock. And so we're going to blow off the first half of the day and we're going to go. So our not back to school experience is going to be spread over 3 days over 2 weeks. And that's how it's going to look this year. While I was really mourning that and feeling terribly about the fact that Isaac and even Logan aren't getting the same thing that Molly and Trevor got. And that Molly's senior year, her last year in high school, her last year with me, it looks so different and so busy and so frenzied. And Isaac said to me, "This is cool. This means we get 3 not back to school days." So he didn't see it as we can't do it all in one day and have our regular but not back to school day. He saw it as, hey, this is awesome. Now we get 3 not back to school days. While it looks different, and there is a piece of us, moms, who mourn that and feel badly about that. The truth is, our younger kids didn't have the experience that our older kids did in their homeschooling, which might be bad because you might have really enjoyed what you did with your bigger kids, but it doesn't mean their experience is less rich. It doesn't mean that their experience is less valuable. And the truth of the matter is, they don't remember that anyway because they were either babies or toddlers or weren't even born. And so they don't have those experiences in their memory banks. And so you're not showing them anything different than what they're getting. Here's the thing, and the reason I wanted to talk about this. I saw somebody else talk about it on an Instagram story, and I mentioned it to her, and so many people have said the same thing, that they've been feeling this way. I talked to 2 local people, one at a library event and one just at a homeschool meetup, about this exact same thing, how badly they felt that they couldn't fit in all of the exciting things for their younger kids. Isaac has nothing. He's got hip hop on Wednesday nights. The hip hop class he's been taking for 3 years. This is his 3rd year doing hip hop. It is the only thing besides his religious ed for church that he is doing outside of his everyday homeschool. Because frankly, we can't get anything else in. And he's not super interested in anything specific. He hasn't found his little thing like theater or outdoors like Molly and Logan have. So we're not forcing it. Because frankly, I wouldn't have time to force it anyway. But it doesn't mean he's not having a rich experience in his homeschool. So again, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because we have so much on our hearts and our minds and our plates as homeschool parents. And if you're like me and you're a working homeschool parent too, you've got even more. I'm sure if you're on social media, you've seen all of the things all over about the mental load and how difficult it is for primarily mothers, because society is still wired in a way that expects mothers to bear the brunt of that emotional and mental load. That where does everybody need to be? How do the schedules need to work? How can we coordinate all of this? Do we have groceries? Do we have enough groceries? What's the meal plan for this week? Who's going to be home when? So we can make sure that the groceries are appropriate for the different meals and that we have enough snacks. And oh my gosh, we want to make sure that our place is a place where our kids' friends want to come. So we also have to stock up on snacks and drinks and things like that. Okay, but wait, she needs to be here, but I also need to have this person here. And my husband has a meeting, so I need to find another. All of that stuff. Oh, wait, and we're out of toilet paper. How did we get out of toilet paper? Oh my gosh, I haven't done laundry in 3 days. All that mental load. You've got all of that as a parent on top of the actual parenting. And then as a homeschooling mom, you've got all the worry and all the stress and all the heart work that goes into making sure they have a well-rounded education and you're meeting their exact needs and you're knowing your kids. I say it all the time, right? Be a student of your child, but there's one more thing you need to do. You need to know your kids, so you're giving them the things that they need and supporting them in the areas in which they need support. And then you're also a spouse, right? And a friend. But if you're also like me and you're a working mom too, you have work to do. You have deadlines. You have responsibilities. You've got stuff that needs to happen there. And it's a lot. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about CTC Math for the last couple of years. They have been supportive sponsors of the podcast. And as I've told you before, I'm a customer. My kids use CTC Math in their homeschool. I am a paying subscriber and have been for a number of years, even before CTC sponsored the podcast. I am a raving fan, and I will continue talking about their resources and their program until long after I'm done homeschooling, because I think it's really versatile for so many different types of families, whether your kids are super strong in an area or super weak in an area of math. It allows you to customize their education when it comes to math. I've talked to so many families over the years that I want to share with you a message that I received from Sandy, a longtime listener who was content in what they were using until, again, they weren't, and they switched over to CTC Math based on a recommendation that they'd heard on the podcast. Sandy writes, "We too started using CTC Math following your recommendation, Colleen. One of my sons is so dedicated. Then, after watching over his shoulder, my other son started using it too. They both now do an hour each workday by choice. I even enjoy it myself. I do the lessons with them, which is a handy brush up, and will occasionally do some of the algebra lessons ahead of time. Math was not my strong suit in school, but now I love it, and I wish the program had been available in the 80s. Too many people think they're terrible at math, but I truly believe we all just need a method of learning that suits us. CTC Math seems to work for all three of us." So check out ctcmath.com or go to the link over in the show notes for this episode and click on it to go over there and see the offer that they have for podcast listeners. You don't have to just take my word for it. You can take Sandy's as well. CTC is a great program and could be a wonderful benefit for your homeschool. All right, let's get back to today's episode. And you can never be doing all of the things perfectly. You can only do one thing at a time perfectly well. And even then, you can't do it perfectly, right? You have to strike a balance in your head, because true balance across all of those fronts is impossible. The balance in your head needs to be this, that you're giving as much as you can give to any one thing at a time, and you're okay with that. That's where the balance comes in. You're balancing your mindset on, I have this big pressing work deadline, so I can't be the perfect homeschool mom who gets dinner on the table before everyone needs to be everywhere. So we're going to need to stock up on frozen family size entrees to put in the oven early enough so I can work on the deadline while it's cooking and I don't have to be slaving over a pot and a pan. And then it's easy to throw away because it's in a foil pan. And we're going to use paper plates this week. And then 2 weeks from now, when I'm not on this big deadline, I'm going to make some from scratch meals. I'm going to make some to put in the freezer. I'm going to make sure we're stocked up on snacks. And the kids aren't going to need to fend for themselves. We won't need to do sandwiches. We can do like actual meals for lunch. And then, oh my gosh, my kids need so much of me 2 weeks later that very little work is getting done and very little housework is getting done. And that's okay too. You have to make sure that you're balancing the most important things like more heavily. And that's what the balance is. It's tipping the scales to the things that mean the most at that moment. And you're giving what you can to the other things, but you're all in on what's important when it's important. When you're homeschooling, you're all in on your homeschooling. When you're driving your kids around, you're all in on your kids who are in the car with you at that moment. So you can really tap in to who they are at that moment and how you navigate that so that your kids get what they need when they need it. And then you are all in on your work when you're working so that you're not leaving things on the table and feeling stressed about what's not getting done. Again, homeschool is going to evolve throughout the year. So if you're a brand new homeschooler listening to this, what I want you to take from it is the knowledge and the comfort that comes from knowing that everybody struggles. Everybody, and I don't mean homeschooling's a struggle. Everybody struggles with the need to balance and the need to alleviate their guilt and let go of it. Everybody struggles because parenting is a struggle. Parenting is a sacrificial thing that we do because we've been gifted these beautiful beings in front of us. It's a sacrifice that we make. We make sacrifices every day for the love of our kids. Homeschooling furthers that sacrifice. And I want you to remember that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling that you're not doing everything well all the time. There's nothing wrong with feeling that it's different from what you pictured in your head. So if you're new to this homeschooling thing, you need to know that there's always going to be something as a mom you feel you're not doing enough of, because that's our nature. And anyone that tells you don't need to feel that way and you can just do less and do less is lying to you, because parenting is not about doing less. There's always something that needs to happen with parenting. There's always something that needs to happen with homeschooling. There's always something that needs to happen with keeping house. There's always something that needs to happen with working if you're working too. There is no such thing in reality to letting go and letting go and letting go and letting go. I get so heartsick when I am told by well-meaning people who are just trying to help that I just need to let go of some things. I need to take some things off my plate and then I'll feel better. Because the truth is, I can't take anything off my plate. I have a 17-year-old who's very driven and entering the college application process and audition process. There's nothing that is related to what she's doing in her life currently that I could take off the plate collectively. I can't take off her rehearsals for the fall play because it's her last fall play as a senior. I can't take off the times we schedule and drive to private voice and private dance lessons because she is preparing for a very competitive audition process. I can't take away the time we spend each week working through the Common App and working through college essays because she needs to do those things, and I need to support her because I am also her high school guidance counselor. I am also her high school principal and the person who's in charge of the school and her teacher. It's my job. We don't have an outside person for that. And so I can't take that off either of our plates. I can't take off of our plate getting her together with her friends or taking her to her performances or letting her get out there and volunteer because she needs all of that stuff to be a well-rounded person and to enjoy her high school year. I can't take anything off of my 15-year-old's plate because she's just starting to find her thing and try things out and be a new person, be her own person. And she's not of driving age. She can't get there herself. She can't sign papers. She's a minor. We have to facilitate this. So what could I take off the plate? Each one is a different thing. Exploring a fine art, doing a volunteer fellowship program that's going to pay her a stipend at the end and give her opportunities to apply for scholarships to get her to be able to afford college down the road. What could I take away off of those plates? Girl Scouts, same thing. There's a community aspect. There's the community aspect and the community service aspect and the potential for scholarships aspect. So I can't take any of that off of our collective family plate, right? I can't take work off my plate. I have bills to pay. I am a working homeschool mom because we need to have two incomes in our current family situation. I can't just work less. It's not how life works, right? We have a mortgage. We have a family to feed and clothe. We chose to homeschool, so we have to fund some of our own resources, right? Ohio doesn't have a homeschooling charter school or grant program that we could do as a traditional homeschoolers. So I can't take that off my plate. I'm not going to take hip hop off of my youngest's plate because it's his only thing. So where do we cut? When somebody says do less, just simplify to a family who's stripped down to exactly what their driven kids need to be successful and to go back to a simpler time, all that does is make them feel worse, right? And we can't do that in so many situations. And families who don't have kids that are older and driving their own path and schedule can't completely understand that. If you're a new homeschool mom and you're feeling like you're just starting out on this, maybe you came into it later and your kids are older and you're like, gosh, how do I do all this? That's what I want you to know. I want you to know that you can. You absolutely can. You need to be all in on whatever it is you need to be all in on at that given moment. And you need to be realistic. Sometimes you need to ask for help. The help for me comes from my oldest son. My 21-year-old drives my children around a lot. He drives his siblings around. He has a flexible work schedule and setup, so he is able to do that. If he wasn't able to do that, I would hire somebody else. We've had friends pick up the slack. Next weekend, this coming weekend when I'm going out of town for work, and my daughter has a performance, and my other daughter has a Girl Scout situation coming up, and my husband has to be in 3 places at once, and my son is out of town for work as well. We have 2 friends that are picking up some of the slack for us to help us out. I asked. I said to my daughter's best friend's mom, who her daughter is also in the play with my daughter, I said, can she come home with you on Saturday night, and can you bring her to the show on Sunday? And then we asked her boyfriend if he would be able to drive her home from the performance on Sunday. You need to ask for help when you need help and be okay with that. It's not a sign of failure. It's actually a sign of delegation and showing your kids that you can ask for help when you need it, and that's okay. Do what you need to do when you need to do it and how you need to do it. Know that every single year in your homeschool is probably going to look a little bit different. You have different ages, you have different needs, you have different family rhythms, and that's okay. And for those of you listening whose homeschool has been able to stay similar year by year by year, and you're able to live deep in those traditions that you're rooted in, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you because I wish that we could do that. There is a part of me that wishes and yearns for a simpler existence where I'm not going and then sometimes having to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning to get my work done because I've been everywhere for everyone all day. But I wouldn't change it for anything because a couple years from now, it's just going to be Isaac and I bumming around doing our homeschool together. And we're going to do what we need to do, and we'll create our own new traditions. So if you're one like me and like my friend on Instagram and like the 2 other moms I was talking to locally, and you're mourning the loss of what homeschooling was like when your kids were younger, or you've just got some different circumstances this year and you weren't able to do the things you really wanted to do with your younger kids, it's okay. It is okay. Lean all the way in to what your homeschool needs to look like right now as you're going into this fall. Trust that you're doing exactly what each of your kids needs right now in this moment, because here's the thing. You are the exact right person to parent the children that you have, and you're the exact right teacher to guide them through the best homeschooling year they can have and they need, because you are their parent. And nobody loves them like you do. Nobody advocates for them like you do. Nobody will get everything in place that they need in the same way you can. So you're already super successful. You're already able to do this. And we're here for support. Use the resources that I share over on the show notes for this episode, raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast. Join the Learners Lab, even for a month or two, just to get your feet under you, so you can chat with other moms like you. You can go over to the homepage, raisinglifelonglearners.com, and just click on Learners Lab. We've got open enrollment right now, and we've got some fun, interesting book clubs and resources for families this season, not designed to add more to your plate, but to support what you're already doing and help you be the best homeschool family that you can be. Reach out to me. If you can't join the membership right now and you don't have anywhere else to turn, shoot me an email over on the show notes and just on the website's contact page. There is a voicemail widget and there is an email widget. You can send me a voicemail and I'll listen to it and respond. You can send me an email through the contact form. It goes directly into my email box, or you can email directly at support@raisinglifelonglearners.com. If there's a topic you want me to talk about on the podcast, that's the place to go. If you just have a question, ask it there. Reach out. Don't ever allow yourself to feel alone or feel guilty like I was feeling last week. It was so refreshing to hear from my kids that a different way isn't bad. It's just different. And I'm telling you the same thing. A different way isn't bad. It's just different. A different experience for each of your kids when it comes to parenting related to that birth order whenever they were born, and their homeschooling related to what all the circumstances are that change and ebb and flow throughout a lifetime of homeschooling. It is okay. It's not bad. It's just different. And you are still the perfect homeschool parent for your kids. I hope you have a phenomenal year. As we kick off our homeschool year, I'm thinking about you. I am rooting for you, and I'm here for you. Reach out anytime and check out our sponsors, check out the other resources on the website, and let me know how I can support you in the best way possible. All right. Have a great week. I'll be back next week, same time, same place with another episode. And I am always here for you. I'm just an email away. Have a great one. Enjoy your kids. Love on them. Go on all sorts of adventures if you can. If not, make memories at home together, because those shared stories are what counts. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.